Hey everyone, this is Louis7, and today I have a patch review for update 28.3 in the Lord of the Rings Online, which based on the beta is probably one of the most widely hated updates by the community at large, and it has added a ton of fuel to a building fire regarding the legendary items grind. I talked about this in my past two review videos on the beta, and it's a topic that is everywhere in the game. But for this video, we will set that aside until later and just go over the facts of the update. Then I will summarize my opinions on the topics with imbued legendary item scrolls and reputation and the such. The update will be releasing with maintenance from 8 AM to 12 PM scheduled on Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, so tomorrow from when I am uploading this video. But first off, as a broad overview, we are getting a rework to Scrolls of Empowerment for imbued legendary items, which are for level 100 plus. Tier caps are being introduced for many regions throughout the game so that the level cap for these scrolls is more level appropriate to the region that you can get these scrolls from. What this means is you will no longer be able to do some of this older content to grind out your LIs at a certain point, and this does include the ever so popular Minas Tirith dailies, which you can get a total of, I believe it's 7 scrolls per day from there. And just for context, for a freshly imbued LI, you need, I think, 230 to 240-ish scrolls per LI. So yeah, you really need a ton of these, considering especially multiple LIs and multiple specs even and the such like that. But moving on, we will also get some reputation updates, some additional gear barters for endgame, and there's a decent-sized PvMP update in this as well, and some performance upgrades and various other changes that we will start covering right now. So the first thing we have here is the physical mastery and tactical mastery values on legendary item titles are being increased across all tiers. So this was actually a planned update, I believe, from a while ago. So they first nerfed the values from about 40,000. This is at the level cap specifically, the max tier. But they've nerfed it from about 40,000 to like 10 or 20,000, I can't remember exactly. But they had the intentions to later fix it to about 30,000. But then after that, we have the changes to Scrolls of Empowerment, and an important note is that any sort of Scroll of Empowerment you already have will not be affected by these changes. But first off, we have the Scrolls of Empowerment available to barter from Dol Amroth Quartermasters will now cap at a max tier of 44, and as far as I know, these will be useless unless they are usable on non-imbued LIs for like your regular level 100 LI before you actually imbue it. But from the description of the item and the way the max tier works, I do not think that will be the case. I think you have to use them on imbued LIs, and the minimum tier is actually 46, I believe, right now, so they're completely useless as far as I know, and that means that that barter option for anybody that actually barters for that, if they are not familiar with the system, they will not know that it's useless, and they'll just have a useless item and wasted basically all their Dol Amroth silver pieces or whatever it is used to barter for those. So that's one's a little bit odd, and I'm not sure why that wasn't changed. But moving on, they also have the barter from Narnath and Minas Tirith. Those scrolls have a max tier of 59, and it's also the same for the Rangers of Ithilien and South Ithilien that'll have a cap of a max tier at 59. And then the next two changes are newly added quests for Scrolls of Empowerment. These are both for Host of the West silver pieces daily. One will award 1 Scroll of Empowerment, so once a day you can spend 50 Host of the West silver pieces for 1 Scroll of Empowerment. And then once a week you can spend 100 Host of the West silver pieces for 3 Scrolls of Empowerment with the weekly. To me, that sounds very expensive in terms of Host of the West silver pieces, but I am honestly not too familiar with that region since it was so long ago, and I think I barely even did it. But that's a very slow way to acquire Scrolls of Empowerment. You can get 1 per day for 50 and then 3 per day for 100 with that in Host of the West now. And then for restoring the 3 kingdoms, this is going to be moving all the way to level 120. Host of the West was 105, by the way. But for this one, that will award 3 Scrolls of Empowerment with max tier 69. And this restoring the 3 kingdoms is going to be a twice weekly reset. So it's a weekly quest, but it's actually twice weekly, so bi-weekly. And it resets Sunday and Thursday, and I believe all the other ones that are like this will also be Sunday and Thursday at 3 AM Eastern. But that will reward 3 Scrolls of Empowerment with max tier 69. And then you have Protecting the Beornings that'll award 2 Scrolls of Empowerment with max tier 79. Protecting the Elves is also going to be the same 2 scrolls, max tier 79. And then Protecting the Woodmen, also 2 scrolls, max tier 79. And those 3 also all reset twice weekly. I believe it would also be Sunday and Thursday. And then moving on for max tier 83, which is the current max tier, you can't go above 83 on your legendary item legacies, we have the quest March on Gundabad Additional Steps Daily. That now rewards 2 scrolls of empowerment with a max tier cap of 83, so you can at least get 2 scrolls a day from that. In the newest region with the War of Three Peaks, you do have to have that mini expansion for this. And then also the War Effort Threats to the Battlefield, that is a weekly quest. And it is once weekly, not the whole bi-weekly thing from the level 120 stuff. That now awards 3 scrolls of empowerment with a max tier cap of 83 as well. So a little bit more that you can get at endgame at level 130, but it's still nothing compared to Minas Tirith, what you could get from that. So that is all of the Scroll of Empowerment changes. Now we can go ahead and move on to the reputation changes, which first off, tradable unbound reputation granting tokens. So these are the things you would see in Moria and before, things like Bands of Numenor, Mathams, just all those sort of things, those type of rep items, they will now have appropriate region quests gating their usage. And I am sharing a screenshot from Laura Lanarian, that is at Minstrel by Night on Twitter, which shows all the region quests and what the new reputation tokens will look like for your reference. So thanks to her for that source. But moving on, the small reputation accelerator tomes offered on skirmish vendors, those are now going to be bound to account on acquire. So when you barter for the rep tomes at the skirmish camp, they'll be bound and no longer freely tradable like they used to. And it does also note that this change will not affect items that have already been acquired. So if you have those in your inventory, if you actually barter for those before the update, which I would recommend if you're interested in that, they will not be bound to account and you will still be able to freely trade them with other players, sell them on the auction hall or anything like that. And I know the price has been going up crazy the past couple days since the update 28.3 beta, so perhaps now is your chance to cash in on your marks and medallions with that. But moving on, we now have the new barter for gear for endgame. So if you completed the appropriate tiered instance deed, you can now barter for gear from Amdan Demol, the Bloody Threshold, and then Shakalash, the Stair Battle. These are the new 6-man and 12-man raid from War of Three Peaks. And these barter vendors can be found at the bottom of the steps of Anak Curfew, and they accept Embers of Enchantment in exchange for gear. And I will point out, I think somebody mentioned this was tier 2, but I have not personally confirmed this, that like at tier 2 you can start to barter for gear if you completed that, but it could be a different tier. I think I also saw something about tier 3, so that is what is going on there. And there's also the rare Three Peaks jewelry from Amdan Demol and the Stair Battle Shakalash. They now correctly bind to account instead of character when acquired. I personally don't remember running into this issue, but having things bound to account would at least, I think, be better than bound to character. Like basically everything else is bound to account, so that will be nice. And now we can move into the monster player updates. And I think in update 28.2, when they buffed the creeps, they were made a little bit stronger than they should have been. So they have toned down values for them, just general ratings, and they also reduced mitigations and mitigation buffs for creeps. And then it says War Leader heals have been improved, but then Defiler heals have been reduced. And creep area of effect healing has been reverted to affect warbands, so like groups only. And it says this reduces issues caused by heal tagging, and as a non-PvMP player, the only reference I have for something like that is maybe the Beorning, who has raid-wide heals, but also the Runekeeper, who has the bubble, the ground-targeted bubble that can affect anybody and not just people in your fellowship. So it looks like a lot of the creep area of effect healing will be back to fellowship or warbands, the creep version of fellowship only. And finally, the Osgiliath one-shotters now engage enemies at a 40-meter range. I honestly forgot that Osgiliath was a PvMP map. I never hear anybody talking about it. Everybody still says when they refer to PvMP, I always see it as Etenmore, so I honestly forgot that was a map. I don't know if anybody plays it, but apparently there are one-shotters that engage enemies, and now it will be a 40-meter range. But moving on from that, we have updates to quests, and it doesn't really change too much, but for your Elder Slade March on Gundabad Additional Steps, the daily quest, it now properly specifies that you only need to complete 4 of the 7 quests, and it also no longer auto-advances upon accepting the quest after completing it for the first time. And then finally, we have a couple miscellaneous changes which are quite exciting, and the first one is patching via the launcher should go much faster, especially if you have not played in a while. I'm actually personally curious to test this out on the update which we are covering right now. And also, the effect display system has been updated to improve client performance during group combat, particularly in raids. This only brings one question to my mind. Will Redline Lore Masters, if they had sufficient DPS, actually be accepted into a group and not cause too much lag? I don't know, but I think any sort of performance improvement, especially in raids and during group combat, will be very welcome by myself at least. And then we do have at the very end of the patch notes one known issue highlighted, that characters are not receiving their proper heritage titles for their newly selected nationality during a race change, and that will be corrected in a future patch, and they also intend to make that retroactive. So anybody who has done a race change and doesn't have their heritage titles, that should hopefully be fixed in a later update. Alright, so those are the notes and what we are getting, and for my opinion on the update, I overall do not think it is a good update, even though there are some really nice additions in this as we covered. It's just everything is good is outshined, or rather outshadowed, not really shiny things, but it's overshadowed by the bad stuff. And I made 2 whole videos on the legendary item topic. I also talked a lot about the reputation gating and those changes in my latest video on the beta, so you could check those out for reference if you want like a deeper dive and breakdown on why I think these are negative changes for LOTRO players. But kind of in summary, and this will be a little bit of a long summary, I think the LI changes will add to the grind for imbued LI scrolls. I think this is also just an unneeded update without some sort of compensation that's already ready in it, and it honestly kills a little bit of a playstyle and freedom that has grown for the past, like, what is it, almost like 5 years now since imbued LIs were introduced. And there is some merit to the idea of making scrolls you get in the regions be more in line with the level of your character and level of that region. It kind of makes sense, but now it just really makes a mess and further complicates an already complicated system at that. And as I mentioned, it also works to increase the grind for players. I actually used to think the trait point grind was worse than imbued LIs, but with this patch I might have to rethink that, and honestly LIs might actually be even more grinding than trait points, which, just for reference, I really dislike trait points in the way you get them in LOTRO, and I made a whole video on that topic as well. But the new quest barely gives any scrolls, especially relative to the hundreds, or even, you could even need like 1,000, more than that some players do need, and it's like a small drop in the bucket overall. The quests themselves are also heavily gated and require quite a bit of grinding to get to. I believe you usually need to finish full zone quest chains to unlock most of these, but for some reason I remember some also being reputation locked, but I could be misremembering that. And even for that, it would be sort of quest gated in a way that you just need to grind a lot of daily quests to get the reputation, and with the reputation acceleration tomes that definitely wouldn't help. But moving on from that, one topic I actually forgot to touch on my last video was this also time gate stuff, which I'm not a fan of any sort of like time gating in any game. So you are limited to doing weekly quests once a week. So for example, if you have an opportunity to play LOTRO and want to spend it on the LI system, and you have 4 hours one day a month that you set to do that, you will actually be way behind compared to if you spent 1 hour once a week, which would be about 4 hours over 4 weeks in a month, and you would just be behind compared to, what I mean is behind doing the 4 hours once a month compared to 1 hour once a week, because all this is time gated towards weeklies. Additionally, if you try to spend 10 hours a day doing these quests going through these regions, it wouldn't be much help if you already get through the weekly quests where there's your only rewards. Like, if that only took you 1 hour, the rest of the 9 hours spent in your 10 hours wouldn't actually benefit you for the LIs, and you'd have to do something else. But setting that aside, also the whole update to LI seems that they want to push players to the LOTRO store to buy Mithril coins so they can easily advance their imbued LI. And I honestly don't know if this actually works, but we just gotta hope it doesn't, and that they soon learn increasing the grind is not a good thing. Also, as the community manager pointed out, they're looking at scroll distribution later, and that was a big point in my last video, that they should have done that for this update. And to me, it honestly makes me think they don't care about the players in this issue, because if they actually cared, they would have delayed the LI updates for when they actually had whatever distribution update they're talking about. If they actually had that working and actually ready to go with these changes, that's when they should have introduced all these other changes we're getting in this update, because for now we're just stuck with the bad stuff. And I honestly could keep ranting about this issue for a while, but I'll just leave it at that it leaves LOTRO players in a worse spot than before, and it really highlights some trending issues with the game lately. But now for the reputation changes, I am not a fan of those either. The quest gating rep items is actually really annoying and limiting to me, and I think it limits player freedom of choice, which is an important aspect of any MMORPG. And it works a little bit similarly, I'd say, to the trait point issue, where you have to do specific quests for your character trait points, which are totally unrelated to quests in general or those quests. And setting that aside, though, I also think changing these small reputation tomes that you barter at the skirmish camp to being bound to account limits a valuable trade resource and will be especially very bad for solo players. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be great for group players either, but a little bit less bad for them. But for the solo players who want to get their reputation up in reasonable times, in LOTRO after questing, you usually need to get like Kindred for anything decent, so it's almost like a quasi-requirement to complete for endgame and even for solo players interested in the factions. But it's going to be really bad for them because to get marks and medallions to barter for the rep accelerators on your own as a solo player, the most efficient way to do that is to run group content for the marks and medallions, and for solo players they cannot buy them from other players for gold now, which for me at least, I think it's a lot easier to come by gold, and that's probably even a little bit off topic. That's probably the best way to buy scrolls of empowerment now, is with gold. They're probably going to get a little bit more expensive in the future, but I honestly think that could be the best method. If you're good at farming gold, then you can just spend your gold on scrolls of empowerment. But anyway, these 2 points, the reputation and LI, this is just what the update feels like to me. An increase to grinds for LIs and reputation when players want the exact opposite. A decrease to both of these grinds, and especially the LI grinds. It's just like something that worsens the game and makes it worse, and I just don't know how or like why they are doing this. But okay, moving on, I am of course excited for faster patching speeds and performance improvements in raids, and while I don't play PvMP, it sounds like these are good changes from what I have heard. But really it's hard to focus on those with these other glaring issues in the update. And I really think that is all I have to cover and say about the update. Just for a quick channel update, I will be having my annual gameplays at some point soon. I am making good progress on the LOTRO one, but have quite a bit to do on the WoW one still. I'm really hoping to get the main videos uploaded before February, and after that I will have each game's gameplay video daily at something, thinking like 8 AM Eastern in the morning, so they don't interfere with my other activities and videos that usually come later in the day, just like this one. And also during that period, if you become a channel member, you can get early access to any potential videos I upload during that time, as I will probably wait to release most videos until after all of that is done. But now that is all I really have for y'all, and I hope y'all did enjoy this video and learn something useful, and I would appreciate hearing your all's thoughts on update 28.3 because I have only seen negative stuff so far. But anyway, if you did enjoy, please consider liking and subscribing for more, or becoming a channel member as I mentioned to support the content, and thanks for watching everyone.